Good morning, good afternoon, whatever time of day it is that you are listening, folks. Thank you very, very much for listening. Today is the 24th of June, year of our Lord 2024. Welcome to yet another edition of The Coping Hour, hosted by Nicholas Hinkle, a.k.a. Moton Noah. Got a medium show for you guys today. I got maybe an apology up front. I got to lead with an apology. I did something wrong, and I feel bad about it. And we talked about it, I think, maybe a week or two ago. I've done a really, really poor job getting you guys into pre-draft form. I mean, the NBA draft is a couple days away. It's this week by the time I think we record our next episode, I believe on Friday. Hell, isn't the draft on Thursday? God beats me. I don't know. I have no idea. But I believe by the next time we record, it's going to be the draft. So if you get all your news from this show, like most of you probably do, you're like, oh, the draft is this week? The NBA draft? They do a draft in the NBA? Nick, you haven't told us about any of this. You haven't talked about NBA draft. Since when did they start doing this? I haven't seen this and I have not heard about this. The NBA draft is this week. I'm sorry. I didn't fucking talk about it at all. I think there are probably a few reasons why. I mean, the first one is what everybody says, which I believe is true, in that this draft class, there's just not as much to get excited for. And it's like, it's one thing to follow up a Victor Wembanyama draft class. Like, that's already like, what am I supposed to do about this? Like, what do you want me to do? It's Victor Wembanyama. Like, what do you want there to be the next year? It's one thing to do that, but it's very fucking funny for it to just be the complete opposite, where it's like, what if we did the worst draft class? What if, and hold on and stay with me, what if after we have Victor Wembanyama, who by the approximation of anybody with a pulse is the greatest prospect that has ever graced the NBA and the pre-draft process as we know it in the modern era? And then what if, and this is where I really need you to stay with me, next year we roll out a class, nobody wants any of it. Getting the number one pick is almost like a, damn it, really, this year? Like, this is the year that we get the number one pick? Let's make a class like that, to where like Atlanta actually has a fortuitous bounce in ping pong balls. And for the first time like ever, they're picking first in the lottery. No one cares. No one cares. The Pistons fall to fifth, and even though in real time we were upset about it on this program, and I'm still annoyed about the principle of falling to fifth for the third consecutive year. Like, that is the math that blows my fucking mind. Like, you talk about in the last decade, all the teams that have picked fifth twice. I don't know about the same spot period in the lottery over the last decade, but picking fifth specifically twice in a row over the last 10 years, weirdly, 3 teams have done it. We'll talk a little bit about it later, but I'll tell you now. Detroit, of course, they have done it 3 times in a row now. They did it twice. And then Orlando did it twice. Cleveland did it twice. I was like, what? This is going to sound dumb. But I think it is a testament to what Cleveland has built culturally post-LeBron. They have a LeBron-less identity for the first time in 30 years. About 35 years. Okay? I forgot the Cavs were bad for a few years. I saw that the Cavs have picked up the fifth 2 years in a row in the last decade. What the hell? Oh, yeah, I forgot. Like, when LeBron left, there were like a few years where like John Beilein was the coach, and then everybody was like, John Beilein's racist. Do you remember the John Beilein is racist arc? One of the funnier subplots of an NBA season that has at this point gotten lost in to the pages of history, and it at this point is too niche of a thing. Like, John Beilein, if you care about college hoops, like, you're like, John Beilein is a name that you recognize. But if you only care about the NBA, John Beilein, coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers for all of, 8 months, if that. And then in I guess I forgot. I kind of have a story on this. So back when I used to play Warzone with Luke Kennard, I asked him in some very in-between way, and I guess I'll just get to them. So the timeline here is the John Beilein in like January of 2000 and what year did Andre Drummond get traded? What year did we finally do the trade? I feel like it was 2020. I'm sorry, I don't remember what year it was, but whatever that year was. So John Beilein in like January there's the thing that comes out that during a film session or a practice, he called the Cavs players a bunch of thugs. And then he was like, I don't remember if he was like, I meant to say slugs, or if he was like, no, I did say slugs. You guys are all just crazy. Or if he meant to say, I don't remember which one it was. And then he gets fucking fired, and there's like a mutiny in the team, and everybody's like, you're racist as fuck. And John Beilein's like, I'm not. I'm just old and geriatric. Like, I don't know what's going on. And then okay. And then everybody, there was like, I'm forgetting all the crucial details. Basically, Andre Drummond gets sent to Cleveland. Brandon Knight comes to Detroit. It's him, John Henson, and like a second-round pick. And that's what we got for Andre Drummond after all those years, by the way. It was John Henson, Brandon Knight, and like a second-round pick. You're like, oh, okay. Who did that second-round pick? Doesn't matter. I think the second-round pick might have ended up becoming... I don't remember. It doesn't matter. Well, Brandon Knight gets to the Pistons, and Luke and all the dudes were like, hey, was it really as bad as it seemed, like in the media? Like on Twitter, all the shit we were reading about what was going on internally with the Cavs. Brandon Knight was like, that shit was all real. Everything that you guys read about that situation and like just how bad it was behind the scenes, how dumb people were being. I wish I had more. I guess as I was retelling the story on the fly, I realized I was like, man, motherfuckers forget. People aren't old enough to remember John Beilein being racist. And then I started telling the story, and I was like, do I remember really what happened, though? I don't really know if I do. I say all that just to say this was a tangent from saying that this draft class, so the window's open over here, so that siren, you guys are just going to be able to hear that. There's fucking nothing I can do about that. But that tangent was a branch from me saying that this draft class is just a lot of people going like, huh? Like, are we sure about that? And so I have a myriad of reasons as a Pistons fan, specifically, to be lukewarm on it. Because, like, so what do you want me to do? Okay, so 6 months from now when the roster looks completely different, I don't even know if, like, maybe that's part of it is I don't even know if the dude that we pick is, like, on the team. And I think that that's maybe something that's excited to look forward to before I say a bunch of more negative stuff. Maybe something positive to look forward to if you're a Pistons fan in this draft is, for all the bad shit that you might be saying about Troy Weaver right now, you know what was really fun was in 2020 when it was his first draft as the GM of the Pistons. And you don't know what to expect, right? It sets the tone. And we went into that night expecting like, okay, Killian Hayes is probably going to be a Piston. And then anything after that, if there's anything that does happen, we had the second round pick originally, so that didn't change. Anything that happens beyond that is like, cool. Like, all right, cool. And, dog, we left that night with Troy Weaver being uber aggressive, and we ended up having more fun that night than we had as Pistons fans, and truly I don't know how long, right? We're talking 15 years maybe? It's been a long time since we had something to be that excited about. But a GM who went after Killian Hayes, Sadiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart, and Saban Lee all within the same draft, and it really felt like a team that was making a serious push to, like, I don't know, well, being a serious organization. And, you know, you talk about it setting the tone. It really did for Troy Weaver as it pertained to the draft, because he was really aggressive in the draft. So, if you're wanting to look for anything other than who are the Pistons going to draft, it's what do they do and how do they get the guys that they want to get? Because Troy would pretty much do like a by any means necessary, I'm getting my motherfucking guys. And with Trajan Langdon, we'll just have to see. Maybe he's like, no, I got my guy at 5. And maybe he's like, no, we can actually do something with this. And we can use our leverage at this position if somebody really wants Buzelis, because at the end of the day, that's who it's going to be. And, maybe do some wheeling and dealing on the fly. Maybe you go back. But isn't that, how crazy has that been? We are days away from the NBA draft. And how many, like, real headlines from, like, real sourced, credible journalists have you seen speculating on any movement at all in the draft? Any movement at all. I'm not talking about the Atlanta Hawks doing something with the number 1 pick. I'm talking about anybody. I've seen a few, like a couple. I can't lie and say that I haven't seen it because there have been a handful of reports. But if you are somebody who is like waiting for the opportunity 8 months from now, when a handful of these guys from, end up being something, and they have a moment or two, and one of them puts up 30, and another one has a double-double and puts up on the same night, and people are going to be like, oh, people are so quick to put a stamp and say that this draft class is going to stink, and this is why, this right here, ladies and gentlemen, is why you shouldn't listen to people talking on television. If you're somebody who's waiting to do that, first of all, goddamn, that's annoying. But if you needed any more evidence to believe that there's not that much going on. How about the fact that nobody's really itching to like get into the top 10? The top 10. It's one thing, the top 3, like, hey, some of these we're not going to get, but nobody's really that interested in getting the top 10. And this could all change. I mean, how could this all age if a couple nights from now it's a boom, 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 and people are just, playing their cards really close to the chest right now. And narratively out here, we're all talking about how bad it is. Maybe internally all the teams are actually like, no, this is great. I would just be shocked. And at that point, I'm just making a point just for the sake of making a point. Because all of the intel that we've gotten so far from some of these executives and these scouts and these agents is that teams are like, yikes. So that's the setup for what I wanted to do today. Off-season content is officially here, ladies and gentlemen. As we've been saying, this is where we really separate the men from the boys, as they say. Although that doesn't seem, I've always said that. It doesn't seem very... This is where we separate the men, women, and gender expressive / non-gender conforming individuals into adults. That's what we do here at the Coping Hour. I had a little game because I was like, okay, so what do people do in the off season? I was like, what's the number one thing that people like to do? They like to list shit. They like to like power rank, do some Mount Rushmores and stuff. And it's like, so you really know, if it's still June, early July, and you're already power ranking like who has the best like traps, who's got the best quads in the NBA, you're firing on all cylinders. Like I'm here for it, right? I think I wanted to, because I also am the person who thinks that if you're already listing and ranking shit this early into the off season, you're going to have no bullets in the chamber in like a month and a half and you're cooked. Rest in peace to you, buddy. Your content's going to suck. Everyone's going to come over here to the Coping Hour where we are raw. We do it live. We do the full hour and we have the best takes. That's a callback to the last episode if you weren't able to check it out. I've been doing a few too much sidetracking, a little too much sidetracking here in the last like 90 seconds, and my hand movements are really distracting me. So I need to. Sorry if you're only listening to this, you're not doing a video thing. I've been doing a weird fucking thing with my hands, and it's really been distracting me. I ended up focusing a little bit too much on that. But what I wanted to do today, Pistons are picking 5th in the draft. I wanted to look at the last 10 NBA drafts and see who went 5th and see what kind of value is there, so that we can sort of form a barometer for like what we can maybe expect out of the guy that we end up drafting. And then if it goes well, also, I'm so sorry, man. So we live right next to the Sox stadium. I can hear them starting to do fireworks. I'm looking at the clock. They're definitely starting to do fireworks right now. Somebody is doing fireworks out there. So I sincerely apologize if this ends up picking up. There's going to be nothing that I can do about it. So, yeah. Let's jump into it, and maybe if we go in descending order, it's going to be the easiest to do this way. In 2023, this is easy. The Detroit Pistons pick 5th. We drafted Asar Thompson. How's that one working out so far? Pretty well. If there's anything really overwhelmingly positive to say about Asar right now, it's that of the chopping block, the hierarchy of dudes who are like probably about to get traded in Detroit, Asar is like very comfortably low on that totem pole or high in the food chain of dudes who are like, we're probably keeping you. Because Cade is like as close to untouchable as a person can get. Like he's not going anywhere at all. I would argue that probably like half of the reason that they ended up letting Monty go is because Cade by himself was like, fucking do not let this guy be the coach. I can't do this anymore. I'd argue it was that important to the team. 50%. So you look at a guy like Asar and what he did in his rookie season, and I could do the thing where I sit up here and I'm like, yeah, it'd be really nice if he could like shoot the ball at all, not just threes. Like if he could just shoot the ball at all, like that would be cool. What's going on with the blood clot thing? Last time I brought this up, you guys were like, what, Asar Thompson does he not have the right to like medical privacy? Yeah, I mean he does, but he plays on my favorite basketball team. So I'm just checking in. I just want to know what's going on with him because, I mean, he was at the draft lottery and he looked good. I mean, I guess he looked good. I looked pretty much the same. His hair looked a little bit longer. I'm like, that's cool. So, like, you probably flew here and you can't get on a plane if you have blood clots. It's like the first thing they ask you when you go to doctor school. And the only reason I know that is because that's exactly why I didn't get into doctor school. I was going to do my fucking pre-med, and I showed up with my books and my fucking pens and my paper, my folders, my backpack, and they put a fucking hand on my chest, and they were like, hey, pal, if you have blood clots, can you get on a plane? And I was like, obviously, yes. And they said, get the fuck out of here. Are you insane? Are you insane? So I just want to know what's going on with him. I just want to know if he's okay, and I assume if he wasn't that we would know. I mean, we're 10 years. I believe this summer it is 10 years since Chris Bosh just like retired. Like he was just gone. And there was like we went from he's going to Houston and he's about to get paid. Like it's literally happening. Like in real time, I remember on SportsCenter, even on the bottom ticker, but I remember very vividly them talking on SportsCenter. They're like, literally as we're speaking, Chris Bosh is a Houston Rocket. It's over in Miami. LeBron James is a Cleveland Cavalier. Again, and the band broke up. The Heatles broke up, and then inexplicably, the next update you get is so Chris Bosh is still a Heat. He's still a member of the Miami Heat. You were like, what the fuck just happened? You're like, what just happened? And I don't want to get ahead of myself too much here, but it is also obviously if it's the Chris Bosh thing, right? Oh, and then they're like, so Chris Bosh is still in Miami. Also, he has blood clots and he's never fucking picking up a basketball again. You were like, what the fuck just happened? You're like, what the fuck just happened? So it's also 10 years, the 10-year anniversary of LeBron going home. And where were we all for that? I was at my sister's apartment. Her and her boyfriend had an apartment. Her boyfriend at the time had an apartment. And I think we had just like swam and we were about to go get ice cream. And we just had on SportsCenter because we were like 14-year-old kids. That's what you did. We were probably wearing like Nike Elites. We probably looked fucking sick. And we were about to go get ice cream and LeBron came home. That was it. He came home. And we just spent the entire day being like, holy shit, LeBron came home. And then after that, we spent probably like a month being like, so that's too bad for Andrew Wiggins that he's going to be a Minnesota Timberwolf. Andrew Wiggins was like, what do you mean? I'm on the Cavs. And then whatever deadline it was in like August finally hit and they could move him. And the second that happened, they were like, Kevin Love, you live in Ohio now. You live in Ohio now. Let's move on to a different team because I kind of lost track of where I was on that one. So last year, this is some good value there. Asar Thompson at number 5. For 2022 was also Detroit. It was Jaden Ivey. And just to make this quick because I sort of dragged on a little bit there. You're like, okay, so with the Jaden Ivey thing, the aforementioned chopping block, Jaden Ivey's actually he's pretty high on that totem pole. I would argue that while this is the most gettable that Jaden Ivey has ever been for Detroit, I would argue he has been perfectly gettable the entire time. And that there has never been a moment where Detroit was entirely committed to Jaden Ivey's future in Detroit. And that this moment that we're facing this summer was always an inevitability. I think Doctor Strange this thing, I don't know if there was a timeline where it worked out, and I think it's going to suck a lot when it happens for a different team. And I think it's more likely that Isaiah Stewart is the missing piece for a different team, depending on what happens with him. But I think that it is possible. There is a world where it's Jaden Ivey, just with the way that the game is played today. And it's specifically because of that I think it's like you look at a guy like Naz Reid succeeding in the playoffs to the degree that he did, and you just look at a guy like Isaiah Stewart, like it would make sense for him to go, I'm just throwing out the Oklahoma City Thunder. Right. And if you're Detroit, what's the incentive there? All the same stuff we are talking about with Oklahoma City and Chicago with the Giddey trade, where you're like, dude, so Caruso was like one of the things that you would have been able to actually get cool shit with. And your head was absolutely in the right place going to Sam Presti in Oklahoma City because, like, who has more stuff to give away that they can afford to? They're like, sure, I could throw in an extra, like, whatever. Sneaky is part of the argument. The only reason that Sam Presti has been able to amalgamate the stockpile of picks that he has is because he's so stingy about how he uses them and what he uses them on. I think maybe there's an argument there. So your head was in the right place. You just fucking didn't get anything for him. You just got Josh Giddey, when you dusted your hands. You're like, that sounds awesome to me. Josh Giddey sounds awesome. Sounds amazing. And so if you're Detroit and you look at a team like Oklahoma City, I'm just saying I think that he would be the... Like, imagine if the Thunder had Isaiah Stewart during the Maverick series. I still don't think they win, by the way, but to counter the Daniel Gaffords and the Derek Lively's of the world, like the two dudes that Oklahoma City probably should have traded for themselves. So it's like, so now what do we do on the margins? Who's the backup center that we go and get? And even though Stu is undersized, again, with the way the dudes play nowadays, I think he'd be completely fine. So Jaden Ivey was the 5th pick a few years ago. There's value here, man. That's still an NBA player. I don't think it's going to be on my basketball team, but he's still an NBA player. So we go back to 2021. The 5th pick was made by Orlando. It was Jalen Suggs. Whoa, Jalen Suggs. Now, this is not a Jalen Suggs program, to be sure. But Magic fans, man, they speak glowingly about him. There's not a Magic fan that would say a bad thing about him in the world. And all this stuff that I would say, like, my problems in the past have been, like, it would be great if he could score. That'd be cool, but that was kind of part of his renaissance this season. Growing hair in, like, a really meaningful way, I think, helped. Growing facial hair, I think, in a really meaningful way helped him and, like, his aesthetic, like, just like, his general vibe as a dude. And so all the other stuff that I don't like about him isn't fair. It's, like, not real. But what it is it really bothered me when he was at Gonzaga, potato, and he hit that shot in the Final Four on UCLA. And it bothered me for a few reasons. One, because he played for fucking Gonzaga. Hello? 2, because I was like, that shot was awesome. And for a guy that I don't like, for a school that I hate, I'm devastated that I'm going to see that everywhere. And I'm going to watch it every single time because that shot fucking ruled. That moment ruled. And then what was double weird about it was it's not weird, but it's just annoying and dumb. And you talk about, we love to talk on this show about catching people, quote unquote, doing it in real time. And you see after Jalen Suggs hits that shot in March Madness on this grand stage, the Final Four to send your team to a natty, son. Which, by the way, I believe they ended up winning, if I'm not mistaken. I believe they ended up winning that. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong. The mock drafts went berserk. And we're talking about, is Jalen Suggs going number 1 in the draft? That was never happening. Even before Detroit actually won it, by the way. It was always going to be Cade. And there were moments where we thought it would go a different direction than it would be otherwise, but it was never going to be. So Jalen Suggs, regardless of whatever I think about him, that's an NBA player. So we're doing well so far. If you're a Pistons fan, like, what's the trend? There's value at this 5th pick. So we go to the 2020 draft. 5th pick was made by the Cleveland Cavaliers. That was Isaac Okoro. That's an NBA. I mean, we talk about a dude who this season kind of had one of those years where it was like, if it doesn't happen for you right now, like if it doesn't happen for you this season, it might not in general, it just might not. But at the best case scenario, it just doesn't happen here. And you have to go somewhere else and we're going to end this relationship. And for Isaac Okoro, he understood that, and as the kids say, he understood the hashtag assignment. So what's funny is you look at another guy in this draft, and just the next couple of picks, if you're Cleveland, Isaac Okoro, that's an NBA player. Next couple of picks, Onyeka Okongwu, Killian Hayes, Obi Toppin, Deni Avdija, and you're like, Killian was another dude who was in the exact same situation as Isaac Okoro. It was way less dire for Okoro because he had shown way more flashes of like being like an actual fucking NBA player. But just this general sentiment of like going into the season of like, hey dog, it needs to happen for you quick. And for Killian, obviously it just didn't. But with Okoro, hey man, it did. So another year, man. Another year, another legit NBA player at number 5. So we go back to 2019. The Cleveland Cavaliers were making another pick, and they drafted Darius Garland, who has now played 5 years in the NBA, and for the first 4 3/4, it was going pretty well. I don't know if there would have been a Cleveland Cavaliers fan who would have said something negative about him, and now they're just like pitchforks and get this guy off the team, and I want this guy traded. And I'm not here to argue one way or another. Mainly, I just don't get it. I don't really know what happened. People were mad at J.B. Bickerstaff, and then J.B. Bickerstaff got fired, and then they were like, now it's Darius Garland's turn to get canceled. Cavs fans are trying to cancel Darius Garland. Have you fucking seen this and have you heard about this? If you went to San Antonio, I'd be cool with it. But, okay, so Darius Garland in 2020 or 2019 gets drafted by the Cavs and is an all-star, 2 years ago. Not only is he an all-star, but there's only been 3 all-stars in this entire draft class. Darius Garland, Zion Williamson, and John Morant. How's that for Three's Company? That's not so bad. And it's not the deepest class in the world in terms of like all-star dudes, but there's a stretch in the middle of the lottery where you have Cam Johnson, PJ Washington, and Tyler Hero. Boom, boom, boom. 3 in a row. And those are 3 dudes who I don't want to. What am I supposed to lie and say PJ Washington has played on an all-star level? Like, no, and I don't think he ever would. Cam Johnson, like I think he would. Cam Johnson would play on the level of an all-star, but like we would never fucking vote him in because like what are you talking about? We're not putting Cam Johnson in the all-star game. Tyler Hero would get voted into the all-star game. Probably would. It wouldn't take much, especially if Nick, don't do this. Don't enter this timeline. Get out of the mainframe. Get out of the walls of history. If this Jimmy thing goes through and this becomes Tyler Hero's team and like the Miami Heat show is like Tyler Hero putting up like 27 fucking shots a game, is that the angle that we have been missing this entire time? Man, we've been looking at Tyler Hero this entire time. I mean, there's something about this fucking guy. What is it? What is it about this guy? It's the entire time. He's been we take off the Scooby-Doo mask and Tyler Hero has been a good stats, bad team guy. This entire time. We found the culprit. That piece of shit. He's been a good stats, bad team guy from the jump. I should have known it. There was something off about him. I couldn't put my finger on it. And he's just another Jordan Poole. That's literally all that he is. He just played on a really good team. He's playing on a really competitive team. And we were able to like mask it because it was just because when you're that guy on a good team, you're Vinnie Johnson. You're a fucking microwave. Man, he just comes in and he just gets his shots up and he checks right out. And it's like he's actually just a selfish piece of shit. Although with Tyler Hero, he actually passed the ball pretty well this year with Jordan Poole. I haven't shit on Jordan Poole in feels like months. I haven't said anything mean about it. Which is weird because if anything in the last month, I've been like more combative towards everything, most things, inanimate objects. I mean, name it, anything. And I just Jordan Poole has somehow stayed out of the crossfire on that one. Let's stay to this. I was in a pretty decent rhythm, so why don't I stay with this? Hey man, okay. So another fifth pick that was an actual NBA player. We go back to 2018. Fifth pick was being made by the Dallas Mavericks. They picked a guy named Trae Young. Ever heard of him? And then they traded his ass for the rights to Luka Doncic. Ever heard of that guy? So any way that I want to spin this one for this 5th pick in 2018. Whether it's Trae Young, which is who the pick technically was, or I'm just like, zag, it's actually Luka Doncic, that's an NBA player. And we don't even need to do the thing. I mean, you look after and you're like Mo Bamba, Wendell Carter Jr., Colin Sexton, Kevin Knox, Mikal Bridges. Like, that's all cool. There's some good players in there, but I'm good with my Trae Young. I'm good with my Luka Doncic. Look at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at 11. Miles Bridges taken 12th by the Clippers. Fireworks, folks. I'm really sorry. I don't know how that's going to pick up. I'm really, really sorry about that. But Miles getting picked 12th that year by the Clippers sucked a lot at the time because that was actually the Pistons pick. We sent that over in the Blake trade. That one didn't feel good. That didn't feel good. Because, Michigan State, Spartan Dog, and we're like, is he good? But, in retrospect, I think Miles Bridges not getting drafted by Detroit is probably the best thing that could happen to him. Because he probably would have had like a big time, like Mateen Cleaves moment where being home is actually the worst thing for you and it just fucks up your career. Where I think, and I mean, you saw what happened with Miles in Charlotte. I mean, he was how many thousands of miles away? Probably like 1,500 miles away, give or take. Detroit, or if you want to say Miles' actual home, was he from Flint, I think? Flint to Charlotte, that's got to be at least, I'm going to say 1762. I'm going to say, fuck it. We're doing this on the fly. I'm going to look this up. How many miles are between Flint, Michigan, and Charlotte, North Carolina. It is 669 miles. So, like I said, folks, it's probably the best thing that could have happened. But then what's going to happen is this. But then this offseason, we're going to be like, hey, remember how we dodged a bullet a couple years ago? What if we just fucking stepped on a landmine? Wouldn't that be the funniest shit in the world? Back to 2017, fifth pick was being made by the Sacramento Kings. They picked De'Aaron Fox, dude. They picked De'Aaron Fox. There's like some genuine prestige to the fifth pick in the draft in like the last decade. Folks, the list so far: Asar Thompson, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Suggs, Isaac Okoro, Darius Garland, Trae Young, De'Aaron Fox. You're like, what? Huh? That's insane. So, okay, I mean, just for the sake of the mental exercise, a couple guys after De'Aaron Fox. We got Jonathan Isaac, Lauri Markkanen, and Frank Ntilikina, Dennis Smith Jr. I mean, it's a good class. This is the same draft, by the way, that Detroit took Luke Kennard, and then one pick later, Donovan Mitchell was selected, and, you know, when Utah. And that's really, isn't that the truth about offseason content, is that's what people love to do more than anything in the world, is picking a player that didn't work out for your team that you didn't like. Well, it could be either. Usually it's both, but it could just be either of those things. And then looking at all of the good players that you could have drafted instead who went after, and you're like, oh, we're so fucking stupid. It's literally the worst thing in the world. Nothing annoys me more than people who do that. And I don't think it's just because the Pistons they've had a lot of transgressions in that department in the last 20 some odd years. You think about Darko, you think about the Luka Donovan Mitchell thing. When Donovan Mitchell was like, dog, I'm literally going to Detroit. Like, I'm 100% getting drafted by Detroit. And then you think about, was it Stanley that we drafted over Devin Booker? Devin Booker, like a hometown kid and all this bullshit. You've heard the story a million times. And the story ends with Devin Booker not a Detroit Piston, and you're like, okay. Heard it a million times. Like, next, go on to the next thing. I'm just bored of it, man. So De'Aaron Fox, like, there's, again, just to go back to the well on this one, there's some true prestige to this list. In 2016 NBA draft, the fifth pick was made by the Minnesota Timberwolves, and record scratch, freeze frame. You're probably wondering how we got here. Motherfucking Chris Dunn. Whoops. What was that we were saying about the prestige of this list? That players who have been drafted with the fifth pick in the NBA draft for the last like decade have been like, wow, like there's really quality value here, like true all-star caliber value at the fifth pick. Well, who would have fucking thunk it? It's only the fifth pick. I'm talking about like it's the 30th, but you know what I mean. And then it's like, oops, and there's Chris Dunn. And then after that, it's not that inspiring. It's like Buddy Hield, Jamal Murray, okay, Marquise Chris, Jakob Poeltl, Thon Maker, Domantas Sabonis. Yeah, like that's pretty cool. Marquise Chris, here's a story. It's like 2019. We've just moved to Chicago, and I get a DM on Twitter from this like guy who lives in San Francisco, big tech guy, Silicon Valley man, lizard man, you know the type. And he's talking to me about this live audio platform that he founded. It was called Locker Room, and he's telling me all this stuff about it. And it's like this town square for sports fans of all kinds, and that's just live audio. It's just people in like what we later came to know as Twitter Spaces, and then like whatever the Reddit adjacent was. I think Instagram did. All the mediums tried to copy it, but what the Twitter Spaces was the closest replication of it. It was that like infrastructure, that UI before it hit mainstream, and so it was really cool for me to like beta test it because that's why the dude was hitting me up. Because I was like, whoa, like this feels like revolutionary. Like this feels like where audio is going next. And you guys know how much I talk about, is audio having a moment? Like, man, audio is the biggest it's ever been. Like it's interesting to me, right? So back then when I was able to feel like I was on the ground floor of this really like revolutionary moment for audio, it was fun. And where I'm going with this is, so, they're, shelling out a couple bucks to do like ad reads and stuff for the solo podcast I was doing at the time. And I was just blogging on the side too. So like they would pay me like $100 to do an ad read on the show. And that was like $1 million to me, right? Getting, H-bombs getting blown off outside. Again, I'm really, really sorry that this is happening. But anyways, just to move down the timeline here. So eventually Locker Room sells to Spotify, and it becomes Spotify Green Room. And one of the, because there was a contract I signed with them where I would like do a couple live shows like a month, and they would pay a flat rate of whatever it was at the time. A lot of actually NBA creators on YouTube and / Twitter at the time got roped into this. It was like a big thing. There was nothing wrong with it or like nefarious. It's just annoying. It was kind of ended up being more of a hassle to do it than anything. And I'll dive a little bit more into that in just a second. But okay, so eventually one day, like I'm just kind of like I get asked to join a very specific like room is what they were. And fast forward, I'm speaking with Andre Iguodala, Damian Lee, Seth Curry, and Marquise Chris. Yes, the reason I am telling this story, I finally got back to Marquise Chris. Thank you, Marquise Chris, for being there. And so I'm just up there. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing up here? What do you want me to do? Ask Andre Iguodala a question? Like, what did it feel like to get blocked by LeBron? Like, what the fuck do you want me to ask? So I'm just like sitting up there. I'm like asking bullshit questions to like Andre Iguodala and Seth Curry. Like, what's going on? What is this all about? The whole platform, man, the whole experience. It does still exist. It's called something else, something Spotify Live. I think it's called Spotify Live is what it is now. I have no idea what the UI even looks like anymore, or even if it's even supported, which I imagine it would be. I don't think live audio is ever going to really pick up in a meaningful way, and maybe it's just me and I'm just projecting, but it's like, I very much like to be in control of the audio that I'm listening to. So if I'm listening to a conversation and if for whatever reason, I want to listen to it on 1.5 speed times 2 speed, I want to do that. I can't do that when it's live, right? Got to wait till it's over, catch the VOD, or like backtrack, wait for it to, I got to jump through all these hoops to do it. It's like, okay. It's like, what if you guys start talking about something that I'm not interested in? That's why we have timestamps, right? The only reason I do timestamps on these shows is because, which by the way, sometimes they don't show up on Spotify. They are in the description. Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen. The only reason I do them is because I enjoy them as a viewer. I appreciate them as a viewer. And that's like down to like all the details, all the shit about this show. It's everything that I do is because as a viewer, that's what I appreciate, right? It's like, what if I want that? Well, if it's live, I can't do that, right? And I am trapped with this experience as it's happening in real time. And I don't think there's anything wrong with not really wanting that, because at least with live video, there are other ways to be stimulated by it, or like there are other reasons to keep it on in the background. You know what I mean? Especially if it's like a Twitch streamer, like just doing like video games or something. But live audio just doesn't feel like we're ever going to get to a point where so I wouldn't be surprised if that's not a thing anymore. The only other major thing I think I did in there, surely there was something. I feel like I got a story or two from there. I just can't really think of. There was some weird, because it was the beta testers were weird. They were getting like weird people to do it. Like they were like random, like really random celebrities. I really wish I could think of any of them right now. If I really went through my following list, I could, but it's probably not that important. The same, me and KOC, when we recorded a show in there, we like recorded it live through the interface. And then recorded our audio in separate channels, and then I sent it to the producer, and then they spliced it, and they did whatever they do with the ringer, and so like that was cool. But that was enough of a sidetrack, ladies and gentlemen. We're just wrapping up here on the last 10 years of 5th overall picks in the NBA draft. Let's go to 2015. Remember, we just wrapped up on Chris Dunn. Well, what if I told you in 2015 the Orlando Magic with the 5th pick picked Mario Hezonja? Ugh. Fuck. Okay, so we're kind of losing steam here a little bit. Well, who are the picks after that? Willie Cauley-Stein. Whoops. Emmanuel Mudiay. Whoops. Stanley Johnson. King. And then Frank Kaminsky after that. You're like, oh, Jesus Christ. How about I power rank them? Let's power rank Willie Cauley-Stein, Emmanuel Mudiay, Stanley Johnson, and Frank Kaminsky. Stanley Johnson's number 1, easily. Here's my thing with Willie Cauley-Stein, which, by the way, get his fucking name right, dude. It's Willie Trill Cauley-Stein. Do you think somebody who has time to change their name to their government name to Willie Trill Cauley-Stein, maybe the take here is I don't think that person also has time to change it back. And I think the last time I brought this up, one of you guys was like, actually, Nick, he didn't change it on government forms. The government does not recognize that as his name. He just changed it as like hey, this is my name now. Call me this. That's not what I'm talking about here, though, because if you're right about that, then it makes what I'm saying not real, and that's not what I want right now. I want what I want to be real. I want what I'm saying to be real, and I don't want you to be right, so I'm going to keep talking about it, okay? I don't think that somebody who could go through that, I think they would just be too lazy to change it back. I think they would just be like, well, I just won't go by it. I think they would do exactly what you're saying he did, and he would just be like, well, I'm actually just not going to go by it anymore, even if the government recognizes it. So that one was a big swing and a miss. That draft class was a big swing and a miss. Not the class. I mean, the first pick in 2015 was Karl Anthony Towns, and then D'Angelo Russell, Jahlil Okafor, Kristaps Porzingis. Shout out to Justice Winslow being the 10th pick. That's not nothing, I suppose. And then to the 10th and final year, the 2014 NBA draft, the 5th pick was made by the Utah Jazz. And it was, wow. It was Dante Exum. Can you believe that? 10 years ago, Dante Exum was drafted by the Utah Jazz. And, boy, was this 2014 draft insane. Because you fucking forget that Jokic is in the second round. He's just like tucked into the second round. I don't, at the risk of sounding like I'm just reading a bunch of names at you and you're like supposed to process it in real time, just process all of these names enough to recognize them as NBA players. Like hear them and be like, that's an NBA player. Or not, okay? Andrew Wiggins, Jabari Parker, Joel Embiid, Aaron Gordon, Dante Exum, Marcus Smart, Julius Randle, Nick Stauskas, Noah Vonleh, Alfred Payton, Doug McDermott, Dario Saric, Zach LaVine, TJ Warren. Those were the first 14 picks. Those were the first 14 picks of the 2014 NBA draft. Those are all NBA players. What? And then if you go to the 15th pick, Adrian Payne, rest in peace, first of all. Rest in peace to Princess Lacey also. Played 4 years in the NBA. Does that count? That counts. NBA player. Okay, so we can stretch it to 15. Well, who was 16? Yusuf Nurkic, dog. I'm telling you. Go back and look at this draft. It's crazy. First 16 players, NBA players. You look at 19, Gary Harris. You look at 20, I'm just rubbing my eyes popping out of my head, looking like a damn Looney Tunes character. Bruno Caboclo. Wow, that son of a bitch. Mr. 2 years away from being 2 years away himself. Played 7 years in the league, and we never quite got there. We never did get there in the end with Bruno Caboclo. But the pick after him, Mitch McGary. That he did not work out in the NBA, by the way. But the first, I believe, pick that Troy Weaver ever had the agency to make, I believe, for Oklahoma City was Mitch McGary. I mean, you keep going. Rodney Hood, that's a vet. That's an NBA vet. Not in the league anymore. Forget that. Rodney Hood's not in the league anymore. And then immediately after that, it says Shabazz. I was immediately after that, Shabazz Napier. It says he went to Charlotte. I thought he must have gotten traded, and Basketball Reference just doesn't have the rights swap updated here. Because I swear what the timeline on that was Shabazz wins the natty for UConn. Everybody's like, oh my God, this fucking Shabazz Napier guy. Like, nasty. They were calling him like I was going to say Cardiac 2.0, but I think what I was actually thinking there was Cardiac Kemba. They were calling Shabazz Napier Kemba 2.0. And so it eventually comes to pass that LeBron is like, hey, Miami, draft Shabazz Napier. That would be sick as fuck. Please draft Shabazz Napier. Miami's like, okay. We have literally nothing else going on. Might as well draft Shabazz Napier. So they do, and LeBron was like, psych, pussy, I'm going to Cleveland. Have fun with Shabazz Napier. He fucking stinks. And then he did. Kinda. He played a couple years in the NBA. Clint Capella was in this draft. Whoa. Bogdan Bogdanovic. Kyle Anderson. Not a Kyle Anderson show, but whatever. Joe Harris. Spencer Dinwiddie. Jeremy Grant. Glenn Robinson. And then there he is. The 41st pick in the draft. The, three-time MVP of the league, NBA champion, finals MVP, Nikola Jokic. Ever fucking heard of the guy? Tucked away into the second round here. We got Dwight Powell. We got Jordan Clarkson. We got a shout-out to Russ Smith. Shout-out to Russ Smith. Thanasis Antetokounmpo was in this class. Jordan McRae. Some dogs in this draft, man. So what's the final breakdown here? What have we learned? What kind of value do you get at the 5th pick in the draft if you're a Pistons fan? What are you looking forward to? Asar Thompson, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Suggs, Isaac Okoro, Darius Garland, Trey Young, De'Aaron Fox, Chris Dunn, Mario Hazonia, and Dante Exum, the last 10 fifth overall picks in the NBA draft. Ladies and gentlemen, if that doesn't give you a little bit of optimism, if that doesn't give you a little something to get excited about, then I don't know what will. Now, to pivot here, while we start to wrap up today's show, I wanted to highlight a few things. I'll read the first one first. Got some emails I wanted to read because in the last episode, I completely just didn't read any of them. I just completely ignored the email. I felt really bad about it because I just didn't realize it. I didn't realize that I did it. Like a day went by and I was like, did I read a fucking email? I checked the email. I was like, I didn't read it, literally any of these. So let's read some emails. We got one from Tom. Tom, welcome back to the show, a recurring character. Tom is the one that is always emailing us from the bathroom, usually while he's on vacation in like some weird part of the world. A bunch of them that I didn't read over the last like month. He's like, I'm in Norway. And then he's like, I'm in London. And then he's always in like some weird Scandinavian place. I think he's just at home right now. I think he's just chilling. Tom sent us in a frantic email, all caps, subject line. Emergency. Friend group debate needs settling ASAP. Parenthetically, going nuclear. Close parentheses. Now, folks, copinghoursubs@gmail.com is the email to the show, spelled phonetically. Email available in the description wherever it is that you listen to this show. Tom, welcome back to the show. Hey, Nick. On the toilet currently, and I'm doing damage control in the friend group chat. We've had a long-term argument between us, Marylander Wizards fans and a Rocket fan. This argument can be summed up as this. Carmelo was only a superstar because of his cornrows and name, along with the draft class he was a part of. The Rockets fan believes that Dwight Howard had more of an impact on the league than Carmelo ever did, that he is a first-ballot Hall of Famer because his career outside the NBA. He was the antithesis of the Morey/Harden Rockets style of switchable defense / three-pointers / being a Team USA player. I think if there is a sub-thesis to this argument, then it is simply that Carmelo has not had the impact that a superstar does on the game / league. We are slight Carmelo stans, though I've stayed out of the argument. I don't want any partiality in your decision, but what is your response to this? Your Honor, what is the ruling of the court? Tom, thank you very, very much for this email. I've learned, as I've gotten older, people my age, way more than I thought that they would, hate Carmelo. And this sentiment that he did nothing to grow the game or to innovate the way that we play it or the way that we defend it. I say we, not checking in. That is a very popular sentiment. That breaks my heart. To be honest with you, that breaks my heart. Because as somebody who grew up, and I really admired Carmelo because I was able to identify pretty much quicker than I had with anybody else in the league at the time. Like when he just got to New York, I was like, this dude literally only wants to fucking get buckets. And that's it. And that was really endearing to me. In the 60-point game that he had in the Garden against Charlotte, I think they were still the Bobcats at the time, was like that. Those highlights for me were like, I'm getting ready for school in the morning to go to high school. And while I'm eating my cereal, I'm like rewatching Carmelo highlights for the 1 millionth time. Or I'm in summer school and I'm supposed to stay after school and work to like credit recovery, and I'm like not doing my work. Like I'm watching Carmelo highlights. So for me, I would say, well, fuck, bro. Because at the same time, what's crazy? Because I was speaking purely as like a dude who loved Carmelo. But I wasn't even thinking about the question in terms of but versus Dwight Howard, though. And for Dwight Howard and me as a kid, I was when I started lifting weights because of sports, dude, I wanted my shoulders to be like Dwight Howard. I was like, I want to be built like a chimney, like motherfucking Dwight Howard is. But these aren't really answering. I guess all these anecdotes aren't really answering your question because what you're talking about is more from a basketball sense. But the sentiment of literally Carmelo was just kind of there to score a bunch and then would get mad when people tried to blame him for shit and then would point fingers and then you would just kind of leave. I say kind of leave. It's not like he really bounced around that much. He kind of did at the end of his career, but what I was gonna say, I would argue that wasn't his fault. Well, I might argue it was. So I think what you're going for here is Dwight is like, I think narratively a more impactful dude, and I think that the way that we'll look at him as a defender is greater than the way that we will remember Carmelo Anthony as a scorer. And as I was saying that out loud, I honestly don't know if I believe it, but I mean it, at least. And if I need to amend it, I will. But for right now, there's your answer, Tom. And then the other one that we got, it's a little bit off the beaten path here, but this one comes into us from Liam. Liam, thank you very much for emailing into the show. Welcome to the show. copinghoursubs@gmail.com, spelled phonetically. Available wherever you listen to, available in the description, wherever you listen to the show. Liam, actually, welcome back potentially to the show. Have you emailed in the show? I think maybe I recognize this picture. But okay, subject line, greatest finals ever going ignored? You guys are listening to that. What the hell? The hell? Boston just won. What is he talking about? Hold on. Listen to Liam, everybody. Hey, Nick. I don't really have a question or an interesting take for you today, but I'm hoping that you get a chance to read this. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out where I can skip ahead here. I did read all of this, Liam. Thank you. I'm not sure how locked into the sport you are, meaning hockey, as I've heard you talk about it sometimes, but there is currently a Stanley Cup final series on par with the 2016 Cavs going on right now, and it is being completely ignored by American media. The Oilers, with the best player in the world, were down 0-3 games to the Florida Panthers, and said player, Connor McDavid, has willed Edmonton back to force a Game 7. ... Wild. Game 7 is Monday night, and if Edmonton wins, to my knowledge, they'd be the first team to reverse sweep in their sports' respective finals since 1945. Even crazier. I'm more curious what you think of this series, and if you've paid attention to it, but if not, I urge you to get the message out to your viewers Monday to watch this game. We had a boring NBA Finals, and this is anything but. History is happening right in front of our eyes, and it is being ignored. Go Oilers. From Liam. A little bit long-winded, but I think it needed to all be said. I think we needed all of that to set the stage. This is a Connor McDavid podcast. At the end of the day, we are Connor McDavid girlies. We are in his hive. If I had to pick between him and like Austin Matthews, I'm picking Connor David 100 times out of 100. I would pick Dylan Larkin before I picked either of them. Who's the other dude that I like? I have like dudes in hockey, but I don't. There's somebody I'm blanking on right now. Yeah, no, this is insane. So the way that this started was that the Stanley Cup and the NBA Finals, the script was literally going the exact same way. Like both the Panthers and the Celtics were literally the exact same team, like on paper and like in the media. And like, again, well, I hate that I say narratively a lot, but narratively they were the exact same team. And so were Dallas and Edmonton. It's the same fucking picture. Connor McDavid, Luka Doncic. Like it's literally all the same stuff. And both series each went out to a 3-0 start. Then we're each 3-1, and we were like, what is going on? Dallas burns out, but the Oilers keep on plugging along. Plugging along? Chugging along? Trucking along. Chugging. Plugging. Trucking. Plugging. I feel like I'm going to word pretzel my way into a slur on accident if I keep chugging, fucking, see, that's not a slur, but I didn't mean to do it. If the Oilers do it, I hope this kills hockey in Florida forever. And maybe even if my most radical, is this fascism? If I were in a position of power, I would ban, not even kids can do it, hockey below like Tennessee, and then once that line like stays until we get to like Utah, like, and then there's like a cutout around like Utah and like some weird states we can talk about it. Arizona, Texas, Florida, North Carolina, fuck off. You guys do not get hockey. You do not get hockey. The fact that Atlanta ever had a team is bananas. It's bananas. The worst part about it, the Florida teams are good. The most infuriating thing in the world is how good Tampa Bay has been and how good the Panthers have been. Especially because the Panthers were one of those teams when I was growing up that sucked. You're like, when were they going to? The Panthers, the only reason I knew who the Panthers were when I was a kid was because Richard Zednick got his throat cut open by a skate. It's the only reason I knew who they were. And now they're like might win a Stanley Cup against Connor McDavid, who like by all accounts is like one of my favorite players in hockey. That sucks. That sucks. He's not Dylan Larkin though, the real best player in hockey. People just don't know that, but he is. Yeah, I would. Go ahead and watch it. Game 7 of hockey. Playoff hockey is probably the best atmosphere, anyways. Playoff hockey, there's something about it because you form a very real sense of hatred, and not in like I fucking hate, man. Like, God, I hate that team. Dog, you hate them. Hate them. And I think part of it is probably just because it's just the nature of the sport is very physical, is very violent. And so then just through virtue of that, you as the fan sort of absorb it in some way. And so I think that's why to this day, I won't talk about the Penguins series that the Red Wings lost in 2009. I won't talk about it unless it's me talking about how fucking much I hate it and how much I don't want to talk about it. Then I'll talk about it if I'm mentioning how much I don't want to talk about it. But it's because it lingers, man. Like, it's still there. It's still there. It's always going to be there. My dad, like, still hates the Avalanche because the Red Wings and the Colorado Avalanche, like, got into some fights, like, 25 years ago. Huh? He still hates them. Fucking hates them still. Whatever. I know. How many people do I know that like still hate the Celtics and still hate the Lakers? How many people still hate the Pistons because of what they did? Like, huh? So, alrighty, folks. I saw something the other day. Maybe we'll officially wrap up on this. You guys know who Armie Hammer is? Armie Hammer was the dude who played the Winklevoss twins in The Social Network. He's that guy. And if you don't know, a couple years ago, there was like some DMs and shit that came out about him. And basically we found out that he's like a very sexually aggressive man, like very aggressive, like very verbally and physically, obviously aggressive. And he's also like interested in maybe eating some flesh, potentially, maybe eating a woman, perhaps eating a woman's part of her body, just a piece of it, like a chunk of it. And then so then he gets like, yeah, obviously eviscerated because everyone's like, you're a fucking cannibal. Like, what the fuck, you freak? And then documentaries are made about it. And it's really interesting, right? Because this guy's a fucking lunatic. Like, he's actually insane. Some of the way that he's hurt women, like, he's actually insane. Dog, he's been like MIA for 4 years now. A lot of years. We have not heard from Armie Hammer, like 5 years maybe. And a week ago, he pops up. And there's this guy who is the spitting image of Joe Exotic, but make him from Los Angeles. Joe Exotic, but he lives in Silver Lake and works in West Hollywood, but his house is in Silver Lake. It's not that bad of a commute. And he has a podcast. Armie Hammer goes on a podcast with this guy, and they have 300 subscribers. And I'm like, and it's like Armie Hammer breaks his silence for the first time. And I'm like, I mean, you guys know me. I see some bullshit like that, and I'm like, I need this. What are they gonna say in here? What could Armie Hammer possibly have to say right now? And they start, and this guy, just the host, looks fucking ridiculous. He looks insane. And he goes, so I'm joined by Armie Hammer. Armie, so you were canceled by Hollywood. And I'm like, dog, he wanted to like murder women. Like, because it would make him, like, horny. Like, he wanted to, like, kill women for, like, his penis. Canceled by Hollywood. And then it's an hour long, and I lasted 30 minutes before even I was like, this is bad. This is, like, fucked up. Like, Armie Hammer is sitting there talking about, like, spiritual affirmations and this narrative injustice that was done against him. And at one point, he's talking about how a person needs to be able to harness their emotions because he's all the DMs and the messages, the text, the videos, he was very violent. I mean, you have to be if you want to fucking eat someone, but he's a very violent person in these messages, right? He's like, if a person can't like harness and control their emotions, he's like, that turns a person, if a person's too emotional, it turns them to veal. And I was like, what the was like, that doesn't really convince me that you don't want to eat people if you're first, like your job, Armie Hammer, in this podcast interview right now is to sell me on the idea that Armie Hammer is not someone who wants to eat other people. And what you're doing, what you're showing me is that you still think of them as cuts of meat. And I'm not really feeling the vibe that you don't still want to eat people, motherfucker. And so I'm sitting there watching it, my jaw's on the floor. I'm like, not even, at a certain point, you just stop finding it funny. You're just like, this isn't even, I don't want to be watching this. I don't know what this is. I don't know who this is for, but it's not for me anymore. So Armie Hammer, I guess that's seemingly uncanceled Armie Hammer. And now I guess he's free to terrorize and abuse and eat, if he wants, as a treat, women. A little bit, I guess, because he did this podcast, and now he's like, all right, I felt really good. That's what I want to know is when they hung up, when they hit stop record, and see, like, that felt really good. Felt really good. Hey, Armie, did that go really well for you, or was that just me? And I was like, no, actually, I really felt that too. That felt amazing. I'm so thankful for this journey that you've allowed me to experience with you, and for all of my previous misgivings. I am just so fortunate for this opportunity to reflect and to think about how tender I feel. You know what I mean? He throws some bullshit in there. All right, ladies and gentlemen. If you are listening to this on Spotify, be sure to rate 5 stars. I don't know what happened. We're back up to 5 stars on Spotify. I don't know what happened. I'm serious. We went down to 4.9 and we're back up to, you guys just like, we got positive cyber warriors on our side hacking the Spotify mainframes, trying to protect primary control. So yeah, we're back up to 5 stars on there. So keep doing that. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That means that's awesome. That feels awesome. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, nice little comment for the algorithm. And I will catch you guys in the next one.